Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 198 of the Tick Bootcamp podcast. The title of today's interview is Immune Warrior, an interview with Gina Valles. My name is Richard Johannesson.
And I'm Matt Sabatello.
Matt, Gina is somebody who you wouldn't expect to get sick. She is this genetically gifted athlete who is uber healthy, both with her diet and with her exercise. She's an exercise professional. She's a gym owner, yet she got very, very sick. But what's interesting about her episode in particular is the reason she got sick is because she overtrained. She actually did too much of a good thing. And rather than just having the movement that she needed to be healthy, she got sick because she was stressing her immune system by working too hard and exercising too hard.
Rich, Gina was such an inspiration. We hear from people all the time that tell us they're too sick and they can't get better. But Gina was sick with Lyme disease, many co-infections, and then got sick with COVID, had a really bad breakup. Her business had a setback due to the pandemic, and she used everything she learned throughout her health journey to bounce back and is better than ever today.
So, Matt, we've learned from Dr. Buroscano that without movement, folks cannot heal from Lyme disease. But now we've seen the other extreme. And if you work too hard, you're going to stress your immune system. And what's beautiful about the transformation that Gina has gone through is that there were 3 times in her life where she overtrained. And as a result, she wasn't able to get the results that she wanted. And in fact, she had gotten sick and then sick again because she overtrained. And what she's now done is she's now learned that there is a balance that's necessary for you to be healthy and for your immune system to be healthy. And she's turned that into her new business, Immune Warrior. So Matt, I'm really excited to introduce to our community, Gina Valles and Immune Warrior. Hey, Gina Valles, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
We are really excited to have you for a lot of different reasons, but I don't want to reveal too much before we get to your background. So Gina, talk to us first about where you currently live.
I am from South Windsor, Connecticut. So I'm in the New England region, small town outside of Hartford, Connecticut.
And Gina, talk to us about where you grew up.
Yeah, so I grew up here where I currently am, in the same town. So I have my family around here. It's a small town, but yeah, so families around here, everyone's nice and close.
So how far are you from Lyme, Connecticut?
I'm about from Old Lyme. I was actually there last week. I'm about 40 minutes from there.
So you grew up in the Lyme Belt, very close to the birthplace of Lyme disease, although we on Long Island like to take the position that we really are the birthplace of Lyme disease. Not that that's a distinction you should try to seek, but tell us about what your educational experience was like growing up in Connecticut in the shadows of Lyme, Connecticut and Old Lyme, Connecticut.
Yeah, so it's funny that you say that with the whole new or Long Island and Lyme, Old Lyme in Connecticut. But yeah, I didn't know much about Lyme growing up, obviously. I know a lot more now going through the journey of it. But yeah, I grew up in a small town here. I went to boarding school instead of public school. I was an athlete my whole life. And then I went to college, got my degree in exercise science. I went down to Virginia there. And I was always in sports. I was always an athlete my whole life. I was always into health, nutrition, wellness, all that since a really young age. My dad has a fitness business as well. So I was kind of born and raised into, the health world.
So Gina, you said you went to boarding school. So clearly you had some opportunities and some educational opportunities that were unique. Did those unique opportunities include health classes and health classes that taught you about how to take care of your body?
Yeah, so I went to boarding school. I played 3 sports there. So we had to play 2 or 3 sports every season. And there was a bunch of health classes. That was obviously my favorite class, the sports and the health. So yeah, I was able to take a few classes, from high school all the way into college since I got my degree in exercise science. So that was always something I was into at such a young age. I was always into it. It was like, since I was young, always into eating healthy and moving my body. So I always kind of knew, even in high school, graduating, going to college, that I wanted to do something with sports, something with health, something with nutrition. So it's always been part of me since.
Okay, so let's pause there for a second, right? So you're in high school and you're a 3-sport athlete,
Yeah.
and you're passionate in part because your dad has a fitness business, and in part because this is something that you have an aptitude for, and you love your health classes. They're the classes that you're focusing on the most, and you're focusing on how to take care of your body and how to protect your body, correct?
Correct.
So let's focus first on your health classes at boarding school. Did you ever learn anything about how to protect your body from ticks and tick diseases?
So I actually never learned about Lyme disease in high school. I don't know if it just wasn't talked about or it just wasn't, around as much then, like it is now, but I never learned about it. It was more about, just health in general. Yes, nutrition, but more about just the body, how to take care of it, but never specifically in high school did we learn about Lyme disease, being in the Lyme state as well. So that's interesting to actually, think about going back.
It is. So let's pause there for a second. So literally the disease that this podcast is based on is named after a community where the first group of people who were suffering from similar symptoms had been first identified and then given a name. And you are now going to school in very close proximity to that area, and not a word is ever said to you about how to protect yourself in your health classes, which of course you would remember because they were your favorite classes.
Yes. Yep.
All right. So now let's talk about your athletic pursuits. What 3 sports did you play in high school?
Okay, so in high school, I played soccer in the fall, I played ice hockey in the winter, and I played lacrosse in the spring. So I was going all year long. Summer, I did camp. So I was constantly moving my body. Like I started playing sports too when I think I was 4 years old when I did my first pull up. So I have been an athlete my whole entire life. Like moving my body is what I've done since I was literally probably 4. So yeah, those were the 3 sports I played in high school.
So in order to be able to move your body and play certainly your fall and spring sports, which were outdoor sports, you had to make sure that you took care of your body, correct?
Correct.
So for example, when you were playing any of the sports that you were playing, in most cases, you would make sure that you stretched before you began to participate in any sports because you wanted to make sure that your body was ready to perform, correct?
Correct.
And you'd make sure that you didn't go out too late at night, and you'd make sure that you got an adequate sleep, and you'd make sure that you got up early and make sure that you ate properly. You did all the things that you'd need to do in order to be able to protect your body, and you could perform at a high level when you were playing soccer, when you were playing ice hockey, and when you were playing lacrosse, correct?
Correct.
Now, as part of that, did you take any precautions in at least your fall and spring sports to make sure that you were protecting your body from suffering from bacteria, viruses, and protozoa that would come from suffering a tick bite?
No.
So now let's move forward to you graduated from high school and moving on to college, right? Again, you still have a passion for health. You have a passion for making sure that you not just move, but you have the capacity to move in a healthy way by taking care of your body, eating correctly, sleeping enough, doing all the things that smart people do to keep themselves healthy, right? And you go off to college. Where'd you go to college and what'd you major in?
So I went to college. I graduated high school. Let's see. So it was 2006. I graduated high school, went to Roanoke College in Virginia. I was a 2-sport athlete in college. It was a Division III. So I played soccer and lacrosse there. And I got my degree in exercise science.
Okay. So now you're pursuing your passion. You're still playing sports. You're now going to a really good school in Virginia. By the way, there's certainly a lot of alpha-gal in Virginia and a lot of Lyme disease in Virginia, and you're a young woman. So it's not like this is a new discovery. Tell us what you learned about either as part of preparing yourself to play soccer and lacrosse as a 2-sport college athlete, and through the coursework that you took about ticks and Lyme disease.
So going back, I never, ever, ever learned anything about Lyme disease. There wasn't a class, there wasn't anything. Like I feel like I would remember that even though it was a long time ago, but I don't remember learning about that at all. It was just more so, the exercise part, what you put in your body, nutrition wise. And I never learned about really disease at all.
So talk to us about what you did learn about as it relates to movement and the immune system. Now, I'm just talking about your education. Now, we're going to get to your experience after this part of our conversation. But as part of your education, both either in high school or in college, what did you learn about movement and its relationship with immune health?
Well, it's funny because I feel like compared to what I know now in my experience, but going back to then, it was more just textbooky, I feel like. Not as much so through experiences of people now. So it was more about, your VO2 max and your number reps of push-ups, or, getting protein in and stuff. So with your nutrition in my nutrition class. So I would say it was just more textbook education rather than having actual experiences from people and their stories, which I think is actually more important. And because you can kind of connect with people in a different level. So I feel like growing up with when I was in college and high school, it was the education just a little more textbook and not so much experience.
So the technical education that you received did not put you in a position where you truly had an understanding of the importance of exercise and what role it would play in immune health.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say obviously it gave me like not like a foundation, but maybe a step to learn foundation. I'd probably say everything I do now, I have 100%, 99% have learned on my own through experience and my lifestyle and learning and educating myself, which is not learned. I always say, I feel like colleges need to have, entrepreneur school. I feel like colleges need to have, like, there needs to be more life experiences with people rather than so much that textbook. But do I think it helped, like, with just, knowing more about, other things? Yes, of course. Education to education. So I don't think it was a complete negative thing. Obviously, it helped me somewhat get to where I am. So I think it's just like a stepping stone rather than like a full foundation that I feel like I have now after educating myself.
So talk to us about what you did after you graduated from college. How did your career begin?
Yeah, so one year I stayed down in Roanoke. I was assistant lacrosse coach. And I was a 3-time All-American lacrosse player.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then I went to Team USA. I was the only D3 player to make it to the final round. And then I had a big injury, so I actually had to give up my spot, which was a really huge bummer in my life at the time. But now I look back and I understand why that happened, and it happened for a reason, and it's led me to where I am now. So, but yeah, so sorry, what was the question again? I got
How
off.
did you tell us about how your career developed from when you graduated from college?
So I just graduated from college. I did that year. So I coached lacrosse for a year, and then I moved back home to my hometown in South Windsor, Connecticut. And I was going back and forth between wanting to open up a gym, be a personal trainer, start my own business, and moving to California to be a lacrosse coach for this club team out there that was growing, that my other friend was going for. So I was going back and forth. I took like a month to think about it. And then, so I was 23 years old, 23. And I just decided to open up my business, and that's where I started. And I started with one client and just kind of grew. One client, 2, 3, 4, you start from nothing and you just kind of take the risk and go all in with it. So,
all right. So now you're learning in the field, and you're learning not only based on your own experience, but you're learning from other people who you're coaching.
Yes. Yep.
So now tell us how that experience has now taught you about the importance of movement and its role in immune health.
Yeah. So I think like looking back, so I'm 33 now, I was 23, 24 then. I've just grown completely looking at the immune system now a little differently back then, because you learn what you learn through college, but it wasn't until my own life experience that I learned more about it. But like when I first started, I wanted to help people feel better. So it was about movement, getting them in the gym, doing squats, choosing vegetables and protein and, good fats and stuff. So helping people has always made me feel rewarded. Like there's nothing better than seeing someone, with a smile or feel better or be 1% better. But I didn't really, I understood what I was doing back then, even though I was younger, you learn more as you go on. But if you took 23, 24-year-old Gina and 33-year-old Gina now, it's a different mindset, I would say, how I look at health and the immune system as a whole. So back then it's like, okay, everyone knows, work out, move, eat healthy. Now it's like, okay, this is why you like movement. This is what this does with blood flow. This is what this does for disease. This is what it does. So just a little more in depth as you learn and educate yourself.
So talk to us about when you first started to now see the symptoms of what you later discovered was Lyme disease.
Yeah, so that would be pushing back so it's 2017. I woke up one day in the summer. Rewind. I walked my dog in the summer through this park in my hometown, and I got into the car and I found 2 ticks on my neck. So pulled them right off, just I didn't know anything still about Lyme disease, which is crazy. So I was 27, I believe, when this happened. So it was about 7 days later, and I was brushing my hair or whatever. And I'm like, that's weird. Why do I have a scab on my neck? And I'm trying to take it off and it wouldn't come off. And then I finally got it off and it was a tick. And I was like, that's weird. I'm like, the only way that could have gotten me is 7 days ago when I walked my dog Winston, because I had 2 of them right here on my neck. So I knew nothing about Lyme disease. So I went to go teach a class and I told a couple of my clients, I'm like, hey, is there a bite on my neck? They're like, yeah, there's definitely a bite. I'm like, well, what do I ask people, I'm like, what do I do? What is this? What's Lyme disease, So they're like, yeah, just go to the walk-in. And I was like, okay. So I went to the walk-in. They gave me 1 pill of doxycycline because that's protocol, I guess. 1 pill. She's like, if you feel sick in 30 days, yeah, you probably have Lyme disease. I was just like, all right. I was just like, I'll be fine. Didn't really know anything about it. So it was a month later, I woke up and I had a flu, symptoms. So, night sweats, fever, heart palpitations. I was getting bloody noses. I just weird things. And it was in the summer and I was just like, all right, this is weird. So a week went by, still was sick. I was starting to have joint pain, neurological stuff. I couldn't talk, I couldn't speak, my neck, I couldn't turn my neck. I was finding my keys in the refrigerator. I was driving, didn't know where I was driving. I couldn't talk. My speech was all messed up. So I was like, all right, something's not right. So
let me ask you to pause there for a second, Gina. What was your fitness or what was your conditioning like at the time that you had gotten bitten by the tick? Meaning,
yeah.
were you as fit as you appear now? Were you eating well? Were you well rested? Or were you in a place where you were not as healthy as you are now?
It's funny because I was like a maniac back then. I was so fit. I could go for 10-mile run, then go do a lift, and then I felt amazing before I got Lyme. I was in such good shape, endurance wise, cardio wise. I still did a lot of strength, but not as much strength as I've done in the past couple of years. So I was a very good endurance athlete. That's what I would say back then. And then as soon as I got Lyme, it just completely downfall.
So I want to talk a little bit more about, the environment that Lyme discovered in Gina at the time that you were bitten. Now, of course, you had this tick attached for many, many days. So obviously, and you had multiple ticks. So there were a lot of pathogens being spit into you. And what we find is that it's certainly much more likely that someone will suffer chronic Lyme disease if they suffer multiple bites rather than 1 bite, which you did. And of course, you had at least 1 tick attached for many, many days. But I want to sort of focus on, what it is that you are physically doing, because in most cases, when people suffer, the chronic symptoms the way you did, there's some immune disrupting event. And What I want to focus on with you specifically is, do you think maybe you were training too hard, and that because you were training so hard, perhaps your immune system wasn't as healthy as it could have been, and that's why you became as sick as you did?
So I talk about overtraining, and I have overtrained before, and I always think about that. If I was I overtrained back then, and if I didn't overtrain, would my immune system be able to, kind of fight that off? I don't know the answer to that, but now after the Team USA thing, I overtrained then. So it was a couple years later, but overtraining, I talk about that with a lot of Lyme people who are working out like crazy. Like it can do more damage than good, working out too much. So yeah, would I say, I don't know. I don't know the answer if, would that have helped me? But I know if you do overtraining, it's putting a stress on your central nervous system, which is not a good thing, especially if you're, you have something with Lyme or you're immune compromised.
So let's talk about balance with exercise. When we interviewed Dr. Joseph Burrascano, who we have named the first Lyme literate doctor, he was here from Long Island.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he had pointed out to us was that of all the people that he treated, and there were thousands of people, if his patients did not move, meaning they did not engage in exercise, they would not get better.
Yep.
So we have on the one side of the coin, people needing to exercise and engage in movement if they're going to heal, and we'll talk more about that later. But then we have the other extreme, where we have people who are doing too much and you're overtraining, and that has an impact. So talk to us about perhaps how you were not in balance. You were moving, so that was good, but maybe you were out of balance, and that resulted in immune disruption and causing you to suffer your chronic illness.
And I think this is what kills a ton of athletes who deal with Lyme disease or autoimmune disease, because as an athlete, you're go, 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 go all in all the time, 100%. Once you get sick, where I had to it took me about a year, 2 years to figure out, okay, what type of training is right for me now. I had to change my entire lifestyle, to be honest, from going from a top, USA all-time American athlete to being like, okay, this is my movement for the day. So I do believe, and I can say this, so this is why I believe movement is so important, and that I agree with that doctor saying you have to move, because when I was sick and bedridden, I made myself get up every day and walk around my parents' house. I had to move home. I was so sick. I did one lap around their house. It took me about probably 3-4 minutes to walk that loop. And I say, if I didn't do that every day, I would probably still be in that bed. So just getting up and getting like that vitamin D from the sun and getting blood flow, whether it was a 4-minute walk or, a 20-minute walk, but what that does for your cells on a, energy level, is huge. So I think every person with Lyme disease has a different, it's not a one size fits all. I really don't believe it's a one size fits all, but I do believe, someone might have to just walk for 5 minutes, and someone else might be able to go for a run for 20 minutes. So I do believe movement is very powerful. You just have to figure out what's scalable to you. So I tell everyone, like, you have to scale it to you. You can't, what I do might not work for you, but I can give you the tools to figure out, what might work for you.
So although it may be specific and different for each person, because we're all different physiologically, and of course Lyme presents differently, but as a foundational element, your argument is, like Dr. Burrascano, everyone must move if they're going to heal.
Yes, I truly believe in that. 100, I 100%, because I did it. Like, I went through that. I truly believe that, because I truly believe if you can tell yourself, like, if I didn't tell myself to get up, I have this in my head all the time. Like, I remember talking to myself, just get up and walk, just get up and walk. It's going to help. It's going to help. And then you can go right back in bed, I would still be in that bed. I really think you can tell yourself such negative things, and the mindset of it, that if I told myself, nope, just stay in this bed and tell myself I'm sick, I'm never going to get better, I might still be there.
So Gina, let's pause there for a second and talk to us about how your symptoms developed and what impact it was having on you first professionally, because you started to share with us what your symptoms were, and it sounds to me that they progressed pretty rapidly, and ultimately you became bedbound.
Yeah. So it was, I mean, it felt like I was literally dying. Like I thought I was dying. I thought I had cancer. I thought, because I'm such a type A person, I was always, an athlete, and I was go, go, go. And then all of a sudden your whole life flips over. And I was running a gym. I was teaching all the classes. I was doing all my sessions. I just began to build my business up because I was 27, I think. And I was doing really well for myself, and I had other trainers and stuff. And I remember when it first happened, I had to close my gym for about 2 weeks when I was bedridden because I couldn't do it. And thank God my clientele is amazing. Like not one person left. They just totally understood there was something wrong and I couldn't figure it out because I went undiagnosed for 1 year.
So let's talk about that. How many different doctors did you see from the time that you began to show the symptoms of Lyme disease and then finally receiving a diagnosis?
Yeah, so I think I saw 6 specialists, and I got every CAT scan, MRI, X-ray, colonoscopy possible, and no one could figure it out. Like my liver enzymes were high, like my blood work, some blood work was off, but no one could figure it out because my tests kept coming out negative, 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 negative. So I actually was the one, one day it just clicked. I'm like, all that makes sense is that I have Lyme disease. That's the only thing that makes sense. So
okay, pause that for a second. So you suffer 3 tick bites at one time, right? One is attached for 7 days. You go to a doctor in Connecticut, yep, and you get 1 dose of doxycycline.
Yep.
You now exhibit very classic Lyme disease symptoms, including a summer flu. Mm-hmm. Your symptoms continue to progress. You continue to get sicker. You finally get so chronically ill that you're stuck in bed for 2 weeks. This uber fit, gifted athlete, a trainer, is so sick, she's in bed, and you now see a whole score of doctors in Connecticut, the birthplace of Lyme disease, and no one can figure out that you have Lyme disease except you.
Correct.
Okay. Now, when you were seeing these doctors, did you point out to any of them that you had just suffered a tick bite or a series of tick bites earlier and in advance of you developing these symptoms?
Yep. I told every single one that it makes sense I have Lyme disease, and they all said I didn't because my test came out negative.
Okay. So let's talk about, before I hand you over to Matt, let's talk about what tests you took with the doctors. And you said they tested every part of your body, meaning it sounds like from head to toe, they tested every part of your body. But let's talk specifically about what Lyme disease tests you were given.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was just given what's it called? The regular one. The one that's literally 90, horrible. Those ones, until I saw my Lyme specialist. So that was so it was just like the regular Lyme disease tests, whatever, blot or tests. And then
the Western blot.
Yeah, the Western blot. That's what I got from those doctors. Not until I saw my Lyme specialist is when I got the band testing, the Galaxy, the Stony Brook, and all that.
Did these doctors ever tell you that the Western blot is not an accurate test and many people end up with false negatives?
Nope, not one person told me.
So it was about a 1-year journey you would describe that it took you to get diagnosed from the time you got sick. Talk to us a little bit more about your symptomology and how your symptoms developed over that 1-year window.
Yeah, so I had that flu, like the neurological stuff really started, and then the gut, I started having a lot of gut issues and just fatigue and breathing issues. It was just moving around my body. So from neurological to respiratory to joint stuff to gut issues, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And it was just like my body was literally shutting down. That's what it was like.
And the fact that you had night sweats, which is a classic sign of babesia, did any doctor ever make a connection that you had several tick bites and now you developed unexpected and never before, experienced night sweats with potentially babesia from a tick bite?
No, and it's actually funny you say this. So the doctor I went to at first, I told them all those symptoms. They said, that's not Lyme disease. It's crazy.
And they never said anything about co-infections or other tick-borne illnesses, obviously.
Nope. I knew nothing about this. I've researched everything. And that's when I go, I'm calling a Lyme specialist, and I paid $2,000 to see this doctor for 2 hours.
So before we get there, talk to us in a little more detail about what were your gut issues specifically? Was it just stomach pain? Was it diarrhea? What were the symptoms that you correlated with your GI symptoms?
Yeah, it was just like every time I ate something, just bloating, diarrhea, just, gas issues, just pain. I had a lot of stomach pain, actually. It was just literally everything you can think of.
And you talked about neurological symptoms as well. So talk to us a little bit more about in detail what those symptoms were for you.
Yeah, that was a scary part, actually. The neurological, that's when I was like, okay, something is very wrong. It's something's like in my brain. But yeah, I just remember, I would be looking for my keys. Like I found my keys in the refrigerator, in the freezer one time, couldn't find them anywhere. I would get in my car. I'd be like, where am I driving to? Where am I? I'd be talking to people and like my words wouldn't make sense and I mix them up. Didn't know, like, it'd just be really scary stuff. I'd have to pull over a lot driving and be like, all right, where am I going? Where am I? What town am I in? What street am I on? And just very like brain fog like crazy. And yeah, it was scary.
Gina, these are obviously very disturbing symptoms. What were your doctors saying about these severe neurological symptoms?
I would go to, rheumatologist, primary, this doctor, endocrinologist, and they were like, nothing showing up in the blood work, nothing on all these tests. Your liver enzymes are really high, your white blood cell count's really low, but there's nothing really that shows anything. So I don't know what to tell you.
But did they recognize that you were physically sick, but they just couldn't find out why? Or were they referring you to a mental health specialist suggesting possibly it was psychological?
No, they didn't even do that.
So they essentially just threw you out the door and said, we don't know, go to another specialist.
Yeah. And I remember my dad coming with me like a couple times because he's like, this is ridiculous. Like, and I just remember him being like, what is wrong with her? Like, she's obviously really sick. Like, and they were just like, we don't know. Like, it was crazy.
Talk to us more about your breathing issues, because you mentioned the night sweats, which is a classic sign of babesia, but we also know that air hunger can be another classic sign of babesia as well. So what specifically were you experiencing with your breathing issues?
I couldn't, like, I just walk and I'd be out of breath. I couldn't walk upstairs. I had heart palpitations too. So like, it was just really scary. Like I couldn't, I'm like the top athlete, like, and I couldn't even take a step without breathing. But the heart palpitations was kind of scary. And time to time, like if my Lyme flares up and stuff, I will get that like a little bit, but there was nothing like it was in the beginning for sure.
Gina, you mentioned that your dad would come to the doctor with you because they weren't helping you and he wanted to really push them to get you a proper diagnosis. What was your family thinking and saying throughout this 1 year window where you were undiagnosed?
So my family, I mean, it's a very frustrating process. Like some people, I always think like, I'm like, do some people even believe me? Like, and my parents were they just wanted an answer. I had to move home. They had to move me home and I was like bedridden. I couldn't even move myself in. And they were just like, all right, just, we'll go to this doctor and this doctor. But I think it was really frustrating because they were seeing me, go from this, successful on the go athlete, business owner to literally someone who can't move and who's very sick. And it was frustrating for them. It's frustrating and sad to see anyone you're, family related to like that. So
they believed that you were really sick because they saw the severe physical transformation that occurred before their eyes.
Yeah, I mean, they believed me. I think they were just like, at that point, it took so long, like a year. It was just like, I don't know, like they were just like, I don't know, like it's very, they were like, just keep going to the doctor, keep going to that doctor. I think they didn't even know what to do after a year. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. And throughout all this, did you ever seek psychiatric help? Because putting aside that it was a real physical problem, obviously a lot of psychological distress can come out of not knowing what's wrong with you for so long.
Yeah, and I actually didn't, because like deep down I just like always said, I'm like, it has to be Lyme disease. Like it just made sense to me. And so, because I'm like, I know I'm not crazy, like there's something really wrong. But no, I mean, I've had concussions in the past, and like I told my doctors that, but they said, no, that wouldn't be these symptoms or whatnot. So I didn't end up seeing anyone for that. I just, just kind of went through a whole year of being sick until I called the specialist.
It's interesting that you noted that you've had concussions in the past, because we've noticed that of now almost, I think you are close to our 200th podcast guest, that many of them have noted they've had concussions or several concussions or brain injuries throughout their life. Do you think that there's a connection between concussions and Lyme, possibly that it could be a balance issue or some sort of problem resulting from Lyme disease that could result in a higher percentage of people in the Lyme community having concussions?
So it's interesting you say that. So because I know a lot of athletes, like my friends, who have concussions, because I got them from sports as well. And I could see why there could be, definitely a hand in hand, issue there, just due to neurological issues. I don't know the science behind all that. I know like what concussions can do to you, but I actually started studying that a little bit while back ago about concussions and Lyme disease, if there is any correlation. But I mean, it's in the brain. So Lyme loves the brain. So I'm sure there's definitely correlation there if, there's information out there from scientists or, people studying that.
So why did it take, and I think maybe because, as we know, Lyme doctors don't take insurance and it's out of pocket and very expensive, but I'm curious why it took a year for you to finally go to a Lyme doctor when you knew from the beginning you had Lyme disease.
I think just because I didn't know about it like at all in the beginning. So I just like, what do? Like when you you don't know about something. So you try to trust the experts, right? You trust these doctors, like they're saying I don't have Lyme disease. And I was like, okay, like I don't, even though it's the only thing that made sense because of that tick on me. That's what I'm saying. But the more and more I got sick, I'm like, okay, and then I just was like, you know what? Like, I don't think these doctors have any idea what they're talking about. Like it's the only thing that makes sense. I found a tick on me. I got sick after 30 days, but that's after a year of researching Lyme and doing stuff because I knew nothing about it. So I pretty much put the information in these doctors' hands to give me the right, diagnosis and the right information and stuff. And then I realized, wow, it's a lot of doctors don't know anything about this. So it wasn't still I started educating myself is when I called the Lyme specialist.
Do you think that this could be a shortcut or a tip for those listening? Because we have people reach out to us all the time. So for example, this morning, somebody reached out and said that they had a Lyme test. It was indeterminate and they've been sick for several years, but they don't know what to do because their doctor is saying they don't have Lyme disease.
Yeah.
Knowing what you know now, it sounds like you put your faith completely in your doctor's hands. And looking back, if you would have then decided to make a change earlier, you could have gotten treatment earlier on. So do you think that's something that you'd want to pass along to our listeners, that if they suspect Lyme, they have tests, they're indeterminate or even negative potentially, they should follow up with a Lyme specialist to see if their suspicions pan out to be true or not?
Absolutely. Like that's one thing I tell everyone, like someone found a tick on them. Like because people reach out to me all the time, like my friends of friends. And I say, they don't take insurance, but it's the best thing I did because I got an answer right away. Like it took a year. It took 2 minutes for them to give me an answer, and it was the right answer. So I say always Lyme specialist, functional medicine doctor, right away. Keep the tick. I threw my tick away because I didn't know anything. I wish I kept it just so it could get tested. So I would say the two things would be get the tick into a bag and then to get it tested, and then also call a Lyme specialist, do some research. If you can't get into a Lyme specialist because they're so slammed, at least a functional medicine doctor who would have some sort of maybe connection with another Lyme specialist. But I would absolutely say those two things are very, very important. The regular test, if you're just going to go to a primary, is going to give you either a false negative, false positive. So I wouldn't even go that route. Don't go to the walk-in. So right away, I would absolutely, do your research about Lyme first and Lyme specialists around the area you live in. And anyone can get in contact with me as well if they need a Lyme specialist.
So Gina, it's pretty clear that you're very smart and you did your research and you made a decision on which Lyme doctor to see after this 1-year window. So talk to us about your research experience and how you landed on the Lyme doctor that you ultimately went to.
Yeah, so I found like a couple of them in Connecticut, but it was one of them. So Dr. Philip Stevens, I like that he had Lyme disease. He had Lyme disease Bartonella, which I actually have. So he actually went through the whole experience. He had it. He is a medical doctor, and he went from medical doctor to be a Lyme specialist. So I really like that he actually went through it, so he knows exactly what it really is. So I did my research on him, and at the time he was coming up with, obviously everyone's trying to come up with a cure, obviously, but he does a lot of, he's trying to do that. He has been for the last couple of years, I know that. But I just liked how he had a real story, how he went through it. So that's kind of how I went there. And it's actually, when I called, there was like a 2-month wait. And I was like, oh no. And she called me back 2 seconds later after we hung up. She goes, I just had a cancellation next week. I'm like, I'll take it. I'm like, I don't care how much it is, I'll take it. So I went down there and I saw him, and then I saw the assistant as well. So, and then that's when it started.
So what was that experience like compared to your other doctors, the many, many doctors you saw over that 1-year window? And, talk to us about how that experience was so unique and different compared to everybody else. Yeah,
I walked in, when I walked in there, I just felt like comfortable, and I started she was like, tell me your story. First, that was her first thing. Tell me your story. It wasn't anything about, give me your arm, let me take blood work or whatever. It was just tell me your story. And I just started, my dad came with me actually, and I started telling my story, and literally it was 2 minutes in, she's like, you are classic Lyme disease. Classic. I was like, I looked at my dad and I'm like, are you serious right now? She's like, we're going to do the band testing on you, all this stuff. But I was there for a good an hour and a half, 2 hours, So, and I just learned so much. And she was just so enthusiastic and cared. I felt like she cared and he cared. And it just wasn't you come in, oh, no, you don't have Lyme, or you do have Lyme. So I felt really comfortable and felt like someone wanted to help me. So
what were the next steps after that? Did they run a blood test and then decide on a treatment protocol, or did they decide to treat you right away?
So oh my God, I'm going to say just because I think she treated me right away just because of how sick I was. She wanted to start something, but she goes, you need to go tomorrow, and you're going to because I had to go to a specific hospital for these band testing. So they did, I went to Galaxy in North Carolina, and then I went to Stony Brook in Long Island. So I did those 2 band tests. But yeah, she was like, we're going to get on this right now. And at the time they didn't do IVs. They just did antibiotics, which is, right now I'm not a fan. Now that I'm into so much functional medicine, going back, I don't know if I would have done antibiotics or not, but unfortunately I did, because at that point, I didn't know any better. I didn't know. So I just was like, okay, this is what he did. He had Lyme disease. He's healed now. So I'm just going to do this. So I actually went the antibiotic route, which I don't know if I would say that's for everyone. So, because I don't know I couldn't say, I don't know if the antibiotics did help me, or if they helped me a little, but they hurt something else, because there's, drawbacks of both. Because now where I am at, I'm just not for antibiotics, but something like that, I don't know, because I am where I am today. So,
So I'm going to come back to that in a second and ask you some follow-ups on that, specifically with your thoughts on antibiotics. But let's go back to the testing. So you mentioned that you had to go to a special hospital to get blood work drawn to be sent to Galaxy Labs in Stony Brook. And when the testing came back, were both labs positive?
So my Bartonella was positive. And then it wasn't until later on that I found out that I had, what's it called? The Brucella, and then the other one, I forgot what it's called, myoplasma, I think.
Oh, the mycoplasma.
Yeah. So those 2, but my Bartonella was, positive.
Did Lyme come back positive as well?
Nope.
So Lyme never came back. And it's interesting because Stony Brook is, I mean, right down the block from where Rich and I are.
Yeah.
And it is still a Western blot test, but it's a much more sensitive Western blot test that looks at a lot of bands. So it's important to note, I think, for our listeners that even though it's a very reputable lab, it still doesn't mean it's perfect and 100% accurate. So it doesn't mean you didn't have Lyme disease because you didn't test positive through Stony Brook or Galaxy Labs.
Yeah.
So did you ever do any follow-up testing for Lyme that came back positive, or at that point did you realize, well, this is what popped? Clearly I'm sick with various tick-borne illnesses and I'm just going to treat them collectively.
So I did another one of the like after my treatment, a couple months, like I would always get tested and stuff, but yeah, it was just the Bartonella was still coming out. And then after, with my Lyme specialist, after going through a year of that with my functional medicine doctor, I would still get tested. But till this day, my Lyme has never actually come out positive, but all the co-infections have. So it's that's like, it's kind of like, people are like, what? Like, that's crazy. I'm like, that's how, kind of inaccurate they are. So
sure. Now talk to us more about Bartonella, because a classic symptom or sign of Bartonella are those the scratches. They refer to as cat scratch fever. Did you ever have any scratches on your body before you got diagnosed that people just overlook?
I forgot to tell you one of those. Yeah, so I would get scratches right on the top of like where my shoulder blade is. So I had a couple scratches on each side that would show up, and then I'd have some like crazy, not histamine, but like it was like a histamine crazy, like where my face would just blow up red, kind of like a histamine like reaction. But yeah, I did get some scratches on me as well.
And your doctors before your Lyme specialist saw that and never put a connection together between Bartonella and your rashes?
Nope.
So again, I just feel like you had a tick bite. You got sick after your tick bite. You had all of the symptoms of Lyme disease. You had scratches on your body from Bartonella, and they still never addressed your Lyme disease. And you live in Connecticut.
Yeah, they said that all my symptoms were not Lyme disease related.
You clearly have a long way to go in regard to awareness and proper education on Lyme and tick-borne illnesses, but thankfully you were smart enough to research and find a specialist on your own. So I now want to come back to the antibiotic topic, because you mentioned that at the time you did the antibiotics, but now today you're not so much in support of them. So let's, I guess, first go back when you first got treated. Why were you sort of anxious about antibiotics at that time? What were your thoughts about them?
I've never been, I guess it's just like what my, what I believe in. Like, I've never been a huge antibiotic person. Even till this day, even like with vaccines and stuff, I just believe like the immune system should be able to fight something off, viral and stuff. But with being bacteria and stuff, but I was willing to do anything I needed to do at the time, because I know what antibiotics can do to someone's gut, and gut health is so important to me. And just important in general for your overall health. So it's kind of like a catch-22. And I remember telling my doctor that I'm like, I really don't want to take antibiotics, because I asked them like, can I do IV instead? But they didn't do IVs. I could have went to another Lyme specialist, but I liked them and I just put my trust in them. So I did the antibiotics, and I knew, my gut would be kind of destroyed, and I was willing to take that risk because the gut can heal. I know that. Even if it takes a long time. So it's really just kind of like what I believe in with my own like spiritual beliefs, I think. But I can't say like, I mean, after a year, I felt a lot better. So after a year of treatment, like, they had to do something to make me feel better, but also my gut kind of suffered as well. So.
Was it just one oral antibiotic you were on, or was it a variety of different types of antibiotics?
I did 1 month of doxy, and then it was called pulsing. So I did 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off for a year. And I did tetracycline. And then I also had like functional, like more herbs and stuff. So I had like an oil of oregano, and other stuff too. So it wasn't just antibiotics. It was the combo, which I really liked as well. And I take herbs till this day. So I did, Tetra on, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off for 1 whole year. And actually my doctor wanted me to keep going. And I said, I think I'm done just because of my gut. I wanted to heal my gut. So
So it was doxycycline and I think a second antibiotic you said that you were cycling. Was that correct?
with Doxy was 1 week, 1 month. I think she put me on for 1 month. And then I did Tetra. It's like,
Oh, and then you cycled the Tetra for the rest of the year.
yeah,
So
oil of oregano and some other herbs too.
So before we get to the herbal piece of it, you mentioned that you knew you could repair your gut. Were you doing anything at the time while taking antibiotics to help counter the damage to your gut so you can have less of a repair job when you were done with the antibiotics?
Yeah, I mean, I was doing all the herbs. I was doing probiotic because of the antibiotics. I was, my diet was very like I had to be very strict with my diet, obviously. And that was huge too. My gut, honestly, like it got a little messed up, but it healed pretty quickly. Not gonna lie. So that was also a plus as well. So yeah, I mean, like I said, there's no one size fits all. So I feel like everyone's gonna be a little different.
Now, when you started the antibiotics, were you herxing at all? Were you warned about you could feel worse before you feel better?
Oh yeah, like I had major herx. But if you herx, obviously it's doing its job to a certain extent. So I herx like every couple pulses, I would say. And yeah, I mean, treatment is it's kind of like cancer in a way. Like it makes you sick for sure. So it was a really rough year. So I don't even know, was I sicker before or was I sicker during it? It's like a, ebb and flow kind of thing. But yeah, so treatment, guys, is definitely, it's a long road. But I am where I am today. So,
Gene, I think it's a really important lesson that treatment may have been worse for you than actually how you felt prior to treatment. But if it weren't for treatment, you wouldn't be where you are today, which is basically living a happy, healthy, functioning life.
yeah. And like everyone asks, like, so the antibiotics worked? Like that's what worked. And like, I personally, I don't know if I can answer that. I think it's a little bit of everything. It probably was the antibiotics a little bit. It probably was my mindset. It was probably my education. Because I really think to want to heal, you have to want to heal. Someone can take antibiotics and get sicker and be sick and not progress. But I think because of how strong I am mentally, in the mindset I had during healing, is a huge piece of it, like huge.
So
So
movement, mindset, diet,
yeah,
gut health, probiotics, herbs, all of those things together, I think complemented the antibiotic therapy to get you where you are today. So I think your observation is it wasn't just the antibiotics, it was collectively everything I did that got me where I am today.
exactly. Because I don't think, just taking pills can cure someone. There's so many other variables that has to do with healing, because healing is a 365. I'm healing still every single day, but my mindset is completely different from where I was like before. So I think that's why having like a coach, whether it's like a lifestyle coach or a life coach in general, that can help you with that type of stuff too. So a pill's not going to cure you. Could it give you a step in the right direction? Absolutely. So
Gina, Rich is going to talk to you more in a little bit about your mindset today, but you mentioned your mindset before was not great and was different than it is today. So talk to us more about where your head was at when you first started treating and how that's drastically different than where you are today.
I think being sick for a year, it makes you very discouraged. I was in a very confused place in my life. Because it just like at one point, you're like, all right, am I making this up? Like, no. And then the next day you'd be like, no, I'm really sick. Like, and I'm never going to find an answer. It was very back and forth. Like when you don't have an answer, I think that's the one thing that killed me the most, was not having an answer. I'd rather know, hey, you have cancer, than not knowing. So, it was just very discouraging. And that's kind of, there was just one specific day where I remember and I'm like, no, like, do not let this disease or this sickness define who you are. And that's where I got my tagline for Immune: find your inner warrior. because I really had to dig deep and find my, inner warrior to get through this. So I think that, any type of illness or, setback makes you discouraged and makes you kind of spiral and makes you depressed and anxious and all these things. So I think I think that's normal. I don't think it's not normal, something like that taking over your body. You don't
Agreed.
realize when you lose your health, like that makes you depressed. Like it makes you have no hope. But there was days where I had no hope, and then the next day I'm like, okay, you reset your mindset. Like, so it was very in and out, and then like today, I'm just so like, I don't even like, I'll have bad days, but I don't let my head doesn't go there anymore. I'll have a bad day and I'll be like, all right, so today wasn't a great day, but tomorrow, is another day. So, but you grow from that. It was the journey of going through all that pain to get to where I am today. So I had to go through that to get to where my mindset is today, if that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense. And Gina, I think it's beyond the fact that of course, you're going to get depressed and have these negative thoughts when you're so sick, because you are so sick. We also know now that Lyme and all of the tick-borne illnesses and the co-infections actually cause you to have mental health issues like depression and anxiety. So not only is it a normal consequence of being sick, but it's actually a symptom of the diseases as well. So as Gina healed, a lot of those symptoms subsided. And then because you were such a warrior, as you described, you were able to overcome that by battling your mind and getting to the place you're at today. So I do want to come back and ask you the question about pulsing, because you said that after the 1 month of doxycycline that you were pulsing the second antibiotic. And did your doctor talk to you at all about why it was important to pulse 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off to kill and address these tick-borne illnesses?
Yeah. Because if I didn't pulse, it'd be too much. She said, so that little break from the 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, so if I was just doing antibiotics all year, like I would be destroyed, like everything in my immune system. So pulsing is very important because it gives it a little break. And if you have those herxes, you can kind of recover from it. So I do believe pulsing is important. I like that they did that because, they do care about, your immune system as a whole.
So we've also learned that pulsing, in addition to allowing your body to take a break because it can be too aggressive, that pulsing is beneficial because it allows, when you're actually treating the various pathogens that are spit into you from a tick bite, they will actually go into hiding when they're being attacked. And when you stop treating, they'll come back out. So you're sort of tricking them to come back out so you can hit them again. They go into hiding, you let them come back out by stop treating, and you hit them again. And it's a more effective way of treating the pathogens than treating consistently. Is that something that you would discuss with your doctor as well?
Yeah. So, well, and a lot of people think like that's the thing with Lyme disease. A lot of people think it just goes away, and that it's not. It's they hide and they come out, and they hide and they come out. So, yep, that's part of the pulsing.
So regarding that whole piece of it, do you believe, and this is something we've been discussing with a lot of our guests lately, do you believe that the Lyme bacteria, and in your case, a lot of these various co-infections like Bartonella and Mycoplasma, do you think that your body will ever be truly rid of them? Or do you think that your immune system is so strong now that you're able to manage them and live a healthy life?
I think Lyme is a lifetime thing, Lyme or co-infections. Like you said, they hide away. So I think it's all about managing it at that point. It's not, people say like, oh yeah, I'm cured from Lyme disease. It's in your body still. Once it's in, it's in your bloodstream. It's in your body. So it's really about hiding them and managing it because anything can set that off. Like people don't understand, like you have autoimmune or if you have Lyme disease, like say you're really stressed, something such a small stress can trigger your immune system and those pathogens can come back out and they want to stay alive. So me personally, this is kind of what I've dealt with when I'm very like after a very stressful year with in getting COVID. So now I can say this, COVID reactivated my Lyme this year. So that's why I had Lyme, mono, and COVID at one time. And that's how I know that it's always going to be in your body, but you can manage it. And I do believe you can be free of, feeling good. You're free of chronic illness and feeling good, but it will always be in your body. But something so small can just set it off for it to come out of hiding. So I think it hides and it comes out, and it hides and it comes out. And that's why mindset and, spiritually, like having least amount of stress is definitely really, really, really important for people with chronic Lyme.
So I want to get to the COVID and the reactivation of mono and Epstein-Barr in a little bit, but I have a few more follow-up questions about your previous experiences before that. So you also you mentioned spiritually a little bit and your spirituality. Yeah. So talk to us about how that was important to you. Is this religion? Is this faith? Is this prayer? How was the spiritual world powerful to you in your healing journey?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, so I like live by, like, I have my pillars of life, just like my pillars of fitness. And I truly believe, spiritual is one of them. And I found that, and I'll just share them with you if this helps. So emotionally, mentally, financially, professionally, spiritually, like those are my 5 pillars of life. And I have found that without spirituality, it's hard to have the other ones under control. So I do believe spirituality can be anything anyone wants. So that might be meaning, going to, church for someone. That might mean, meditating for someone. So for me personally, it's where I ground myself and I center myself. There's not one specific thing for me spiritually. I just know the place I need to go. So maybe actually for me, it might be going for a walk and getting grounded and centered there. And just, calming my central nervous system down. That's really important. Or it may be, I'm gonna say a prayer today. So it doesn't have to be one thing. I believe everyone's different. So I think everyone just has to find what works for them. I know it works for me.
You touched on the central nervous system, and I think there are a wide variety of ways to calm down the nervous system. And I want to explore that a little bit deeper with you. So I think faith and religion can be one way to help calm down your nervous system. Yep. But I also think there are a lot of other ways to do that as well. So you mentioned going for a walk, grounding, and other techniques to help sort of calm the nervous system. What have you learned in your researches? What have you learned from researching and studying about the importance of the nervous system and healing from a chronic illness like Lyme disease?
Yeah, and I think so. It's funny because I think this is where fitness and movement comes into play, because as someone who's been in fitness and training and working out, the central nervous system is what you're working. So in a workout, you're ramping up your central nervous system. Like I'm lifting a dumbbell right now. That's my central nervous system, coming up. So, staying in your sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system, it's very important to see which nervous system you are getting your body into. So I truly believe, some people, so someone who might go for, like, with chronic illness, who are trying to go for a run, that might be actually a negative thing because it's raising their flight or flight. Maybe that's not a good thing for them. But maybe someone like me, I know if I go for a light jog, it's actually calming to me, and it calms my nervous system down, and it brings me to more of a grounded place. So I think, getting out of that flight or fight is huge for someone battling chronic illness, because that can make your body go haywire. With dealing with that.
So Gina, talk to us about the two different components of our nervous system. We have the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system.
Yep.
What role does each play in the human body?
There's 3 divisions too. There's autonomic as well, but I think it's flight or flight, pretty much, the para. So you staying in that state is gonna make you, the vagus nerve is I'm sure you've heard about this. The vagus nerve is a huge indicator of chronic illness and what that does. So staying in that parasympathetic state is really going to build that flight or flight. So that's kind of where we want to stay out of. And that's what just goes along with, like, grounding and centering. And we want to get into more of like a sympathetic nervous system. So that's why, as someone who does fitness, maybe a HIIT class, someone who has chronic illness, take someone who has chronic illness, Lyme disease, they're going to go do a HIIT class, right? That could be a very flight or fight nervous system for somebody. So maybe HIIT classes aren't the greatest for you. Maybe going for a walk or maybe even lifting weights for you. So like it goes back to everything. There's no one size fits all. I truly believe that because I talk to other Lyme patients and like my friends, like someone says like, oh yeah, I lift and I feel great. When I lift heavy, it kills me. So I know when I do cardio, I feel better. And someone I can talk to says cardio makes them feel worse. So it's very, very, very interesting to, look at everyone's story and how different it is. So there really is no wrong or right. But when you take someone who says, okay, lifting's good for me, running's good for me, they're still moving. So whether it's, one or the other, movement is helping them in different ways.
And I want to explore a little bit deeper through the movement component in a second, but I just want to clarify, I think just the sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight and the parasympathetic is the rest and digest, correct?
Yeah, sorry, did I flip them?
I'm dyslexic, so I just want to make sure I got it right. So I'm
No, you're right. Did I say the vice versa? Sorry.
I think you may have, but either way, I just wanted to ask you so we can clarify that.
Yeah, sorry.
But I think an important characteristic of chronic illness in general is that the sympathetic nervous system is overactivated and the parasympathetic nervous system is underactivated, meaning our rest and digest, which is a state of body which allows us to heal, is underactive, and the fight or flight is overactive, which means we're in a constant state of overactivity and overdriven, which prevents our body from healing. And the goal is to reverse that so our body's in a more healthy place to heal. And so, Gina, talk to us about movement more and the lymphatic system, because we know that lymphatic drainage is so important to remove these toxins that are being killed in our body. But many people in the Lyme community are not able to move that much. So what role do you feel lymphatic drainage plays in the healing journey? And what advice would you give our listeners to be able to get their lymphatic system moving, even if they're very limited in regard to physical activity?
So I truly believe drainage and the lymphatic system it's the number one. You have to start there to heal. And like you said, so this is what was hard for me. So sweating is really important. I wasn't able to sweat because I was so sick. So I was holding all those toxins in. My body wasn't allowing my temperature to get up. I couldn't drain like that. So I really, really, really emphasize how important, infrared sauna is, red light, so mitochondria. So there's different ways, obviously supplements so you get drainage from the lymphatic system are very important. But yeah, I would say to heal, you really have to start with that as number one, because the body's not going to be able to do anything without that. So I couldn't sweat from exercise or movement. So, I kind of went through the sauna thing and just other ways to get drainage. And that is like number one to healing, I truly believe. So.
And if you can't purge the toxins from the die off of the pathogens, then you're going to become more toxic as a whole. And that is very dangerous because if you're that sick, it can put you over that edge and you can get even worse.
Correct.
So Gina, and talk to us now. Let's go back to your antibiotics. So you were on the doxy for a month. You were cycling them for then the rest of the year. When did you start to feel better from the antibiotic treatment?
So I was really sick throughout that year because of the herxing. But I would probably say actually like towards the end, probably month 10 to month 12 after doing it, I started to feel actually a little better, to be honest, and that's kind of why I pulled away from antibiotics. I was like, okay, I'm kind of feeling a little better. Like my gut needs a break anyway. So it was really not till like month 10, 12. So really that's 2 years when you think about it, because I went 1 year undiagnosed and then that whole year there. So it was weird because I felt better, but I didn't feel what I felt before, like pre-Lyme. It was a different type of good, if that makes any sense.
It does. So Gina, tell us some of the symptoms that were disappearing at this 10-month window once you started to feel some benefit from the antibiotics.
So the neurological stuff started going away. The respiratory stuff started going away. Let's see what else. I was able to, move a little more. I was still fatigued. Fatigue was still an issue. My pain was still an issue. But I would say the neurological, the respiratory, that was definitely getting better. which was huge piece because I could actually think like a little normal now. So I would say those went away. I still, like I said, I still had, joint pain. I still had fatigue. Bloody noses was actually, I got a lot of bloody noses because my body was so acidic, I think, just from everything. So bloody noses was a huge kind of one of the biggest symptoms that I actually had. And it's not one that they say, it's not because of Lyme disease. It's just because your body's so acidic. So getting my body back into like a pH balance was like important and stuff too. So, but yeah.
I think, Gina, though, the acidic part of your journey, as you're healing and the bacteria and pathogens get killed, when you get into a herx, your body becomes more acidic because of that herx.
Yeah.
So I feel like that could be a result of the treatment, not necessarily the disease itself. What do you think about that?
So when I first got sick, so when I woke up in the summer, with the flu, I had bloody noses like crazy. So I think it's because my body was so acidic at that point, but it also can be, probably from treatment to herxing it out too. So do I think it could be a combo of everything? Yeah, I do.
So now I also believe that herbs and the other things you did were an integral part of your healing journey that serve to help the antibiotics get you better. So talk to us about what herbs you were on and why your Lyme doctor prescribed them to help you with what specific symptoms.
Yeah, so I mean, they were definitely about, getting that tetra and the doxy or whatever, but I took specific, not just like from a tincture. I actually had to get these from a specific place. So it was just a ton of oil of oregano pills, which actually flared me up a lot. Like that was a big part of the herxing, those herbs, because they're so strong. So it was really, I really did, they wanted to put me on something else, but I stopped right before treatment. I ended my treatment before, I forgot what they wanted to put me on, but it was really just pretty much oil of oregano. And then, like all my like smaller supplements, D, C, all that kind of thing. And it wasn't for the herbs until I started doing more research, is that I started going on like cat's claw, like licorice root and that kind of stuff. So really it was very powerful oil of oregano, and it was like very powerful. I had a lot of herxing with that.
So the herbs were helping you kill the pathogens, but then some of the herbs you found later on also, I think, were helping your immune system as well.
Yes, correct.
So you finished antibiotics after a year, you made some gains, but you still were having some residual symptoms that just didn't go away. And it sounds like you introduced more herbs after doing your own research to help rebuild your body. And now talk to us about that period of time after the antibiotics, you're introducing new herbs. How did your health change? Did it improve or decline after stopping the antibiotics and introducing the new herbs?
So after the antibiotics, I'm trying to remember. So I remember getting better. I couldn't like perform like an athlete really, like I was at one point. I could work out again, but I had to really adjust my workouts, and that's why I've come up with this whole new brand, but in learning my body as someone with chronic illness. So I definitely started to get better, could finally work out again. I still had some symptoms lingering, and there'd be bad days, good days. I always say this, like with whole chronic illness and Lyme disease, like when my feet hit in the morning, I don't know what type of day it's going to be. Like until it hits, like I know right away, like when I wake up, is this going to be a good day? Is this going to be an okay day? Is this going to be a bad Lyme day? So it's really like a day by day thing. So I remember getting better for a couple months. I started working out again, started getting in my groove again. And there was a couple months where, I'd kind of go down and then I come back up, and then I go down and then I come back up. I remember though, the best I've ever felt in my journey was actually last summer. That was the best I've ever felt. And I think about what did I do differently like last year, that summer, and I go back and I really think I wasn't the stress. I think stress of, I had people working at my gym. I wasn't very stressed. My diet was on point. My supplements, I was on my supplement game every single day. I did celery juice every single day. And it was a lot of work I had to do, but when it comes down to it, it was my mindset and the stress, to be honest. So I really think the nervous system has a huge part in it.
Gina, were there any other herbs you were on when you did your own research? You mentioned that you did cat's claw in addition to the oil of oregano after you stopped the antibiotics. Were there any others that you were utilizing to help both address the tick-borne illnesses and strengthen your body and immune system?
I did. So I've done a couple things. So what was it? Is it Samato or something?
Cemento?
Cemento. I did that for a little bit. I did like lemon balm, licorice root. I did those on and off. I would kind of pulse those kind of things still. So I wasn't like every day. It was 2 weeks on. I did 2 weeks off or whatever. But still to this day, I still take cat's claw. But yeah, I mean, I've been through a ton of different herbs and supplements. Oil of oregano, I still have time to time. The two that work best for me are cat's claw, oil of oregano, licorice root, lemon balm. Those have their places. Those were a little powerful for me. But those were for the nervous system, especially. But yeah.
Do you think you'd be where you are today, Gina, if it weren't for the herbs supplementing the antibiotics?
I really do think that's it's a big part of it, you know. Our bodies, you know, those with chronic Lyme, like I know people say supplements are just a supplement, what you don't get from food and stuff, but as a fitness person too, like we don't even get enough nutrients from the food we eat. I think you have to eat about 3,000 calories or more to get all of the full nutrients, and you have to eat right to get those. So, yeah, I notice for me personally, maybe not someone else, when I'm not on my supplement game, my health declines. So when I do my celery juice and my supplements consistently, just like anything in life, it's really the consistency. So, you know, if I forget one day, you know, the next day I'll just do it. But yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to be taking those for a long time.
So Gina, you were at your best last summer. And then you told us earlier that you had COVID and then mono as well. So when did you develop COVID and the reactivation of mono after your really high time last summer?
So this is crazy. So I was feeling like my best I've felt in so long. I felt like I was like an athlete again. I could run, I could lift, I could like do all these things. I wasn't going crazy. Like my workouts were really short. Like I felt like I had no pain. Like I was feeling really good. And then, you know, COVID was going on and stuff, and I had to, you know, gyms were closed and I had to do all my sessions online. So I started having to do all the workouts with my clients. So that really kind of took a toll on my immune system. And I had my cousins, I'm like, guys, you got to help me out because I can't work out like this. Like I'm just doing 2-3 times a day. I'm like, I can't even do one right now. So I think that kind of that kind of killed my health a little bit. And then in November, my boyfriend had COVID at the time and I got COVID. So I had my gym closed. I had COVID. COVID reactivated my Epstein-Barr and mono, and then it reactivated my Lyme. So and then I went through a breakup. So take all 5 of those, and it was a very, very hard year for sure.
I'm sorry, Gina. I mean, that sounds like everything came back full force at that point.
It was like a rock bottom year, but where I am right now, I'm in a really good place. So that's why I say, like, you think everything's going great and you finally, you know, like you healed, and this is part of the journey. Like it's healing's not linear. There's always going to be those, you know, ebbs and flows, ups and downs. And like, cause I was feeling like, I mean, I was so happy, like everything was going smooth. And then COVID happened, gym closed, lost 60% of my business with COVID, you know, got COVID, reactivated everything because I was stressed, and then a breakup. And it was just a lot. And that's when immune kind of came out, and I've just focused on that, and, you know, helping other people has helped me this year.
I think you're really highlighting the fact that immune disruptors can be both physical, they can be pathogens, they can be an illness, or they can be environmental factors. They can be, you know, stressors in your life. So for you, you got infected with COVID, you had reactivated Epstein-Barr, which reactivated your Lyme, you had a breakup, you lost your gym, you lost a percentage of your business, and then you crashed. So do you think that all of those things were immune disruptors, which allowed all of the pathogens to just really flourish and take over?
Yes, I 100% do.
So do you think that possibly you were overtraining as well? Because you mentioned that you were feeling great. So you were running hardcore, you were exercising hardcore. Do you think that when you started to get sick, that you were still possibly overtraining and that contributed to your immune disruption as well?
I don't think I was overtraining until COVID. Well, I didn't have a choice. COVID happened. And then I had to because I was on Zoom. So I had to film all my workouts with 3 classes a day. And I only did it for probably 1.5, 2 weeks. And I go, I can't do it. I'm going to get sick. So I think I stopped at the right time, but I think that did a little something, but I had no choice. I'm a 1-person show at the time because I had to let go of trainers because, my business. So I had to take it all on my hands, and thank God for my cousins. They helped me out for a couple months doing those workouts. They're young kids. And they're athletes. So I do think it was just way too much. And I knew that, but I didn't know what to do. And towards the end, I'm like, guys, my health is really bad. And they all understood. They're like, just show us the move. We'll do it, So my clientele has been really great, but yes, overtraining and chronic illness is definitely like a big no-no. You don't realize how much you tax your nervous system.
Now, Gina, was this before you contracted COVID and had to break up where you were training several times a day? So that kind of weakened you a little bit. And then you had all those other severe stressors as well. So talk to us about how you bounced back from that, because here you are today and you're obviously doing so much better. So I'm dying to know what you did to recover from that perfect storm of just events that really caused you to crash.
Yeah. So I would say in March, so November, December, January, February, March. So March was like the breakup, the tough breakup. And then, so I had COVID in November, and then my mono reactivated. And so March was really like when the breakup ended. And then March, what month is it? Is it August?
August, yes.
March, April, May, June, July, August. So it's been about 6 months. So I would say from March, April, May, after that breakup, and my health, like I lost a lot of weight. For me, and I'm 5 feet tall. Like I don't have a lot of weight to lose. I lost 15 pounds. I wasn't eating because I was, like my 5 pillars of life were crushed. And I just felt like I was not in a good place in March, and I broke down one day in my gym in front of my clients, and that's not like who I am. And I was just like, all right, my mom was in the fitness class taking the class with me, and I just broke down and in front of my whole entire 8 a.m. class. And I was just like, oh my God. And my mom's like, you need to pull yourself together. Like you got to do this. And she said that to me, and I'm like, you know what, you're right. And I was just like, all right, this is just another bump. And I need to find my inner warrior again. Like this time it's a little different. Last time I was bedridden with a disease I didn't know. Now I know everything. I'm smarter, I'm wiser, I have more knowledge, I have more education now. I'm like, I need to find my inner warrior again. This is just another bump that everyone goes through. This, like, everyone went through something this year, every single person. And I told myself, I go, I'm not alone. Every single person in this room right now had a crap year, So, but I'm like, all right, so pull yourself together. And immune is something I was working on before COVID, and I had to put it on hold because I got so sick, in November. And it just, I don't know if it's a timeline, but after March, that's when I was like, all right, I'm going to heal. I'm going to rest. I'm going to help people, and it's going to help myself. And that's where immune came out of. And I finally launched it a little while ago. So that's what I've been working on in the past couple of months. And, it's the journey. It's just the journey of it, finding that inner warrior, going through adversity, because you can't grow without adversity, as bad as that sounds. So I came up with immune, and I'm in a really good place right now. I'm in a different mindset. I'll always be an athlete, but I know now, less is more. That's what I'm going to say. Less is more for me. So I have a plan coming with the gym, hiring people and getting back to, running the gym, more managing it than actually training, because my body needs less.
So Gina, Rich is going to talk to you in a second about immune and all the beautiful work you're doing now. But I'm really curious to know, how did you recover from March until now? It's only been about 6 months.
Yeah.
How did you recover from being so sick and having all of those devastating life events happen to you? Was it herbs? Was it antibiotics? Was it, what specific things did you do to recover?
So, well, right now, lately I've been like very, very, very fatigued because right now I'm a one person show still. So I feel like physically I'm not like where I need to be, but mentally and emotionally I am where I need to be. So that has helped my physical. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
So I know like my pillar of fitness. So like I know, so like my physical right now is way down here compared to my other pillars of fitness. So I'm just using my mindset, my emotional, my spiritual, my professional life to, and I'm taking a rest with my physical. So I really back down from working out hard, and I'm just moving, like I'm going for walks, like I'm doing minimal movement, but it's what my body needs. So I really have just, focus on what I can do, which is my mindset and the mental and emotional aspect of life, and just put away the athlete and the physical right now and just focus on what I can do rather than what I can't, because as an athlete it's so hard not being able to go all in the gym and stuff. But through this whole experience, I'll always be an athlete no matter what. And that's where immune comes in. And it's just about being 1% better every single day. And I tell myself that every single day. And that's how I find my inner warrior. So through the physical part, I've just backed down from the gym, but I'm moving every day. I have to move. I have to go for a walk or a light jog or a body weight. But I'm not lifting heavy. And then, just, I'm starting a new protocol with, I'm going back to like the drainage thing just because I'm so fatigued right now. So I'm gonna, start drainage with supplements that, I've used before. And when you go through this over and over again, like you learn like what you need to do next. And I do have a functional medicine doctor that I work with. But I know so much that it's awesome. So that's why I really think educating yourself is so important, because you can be your own doctor. Because I can go to my functional medicine doctor and being like, okay, this, but I know it's like when you go through something like this, kind of like with like, if there's a mother going through her own birth or whatever, only you know how you feel and what you need. So I'm starting like a little supplement phase and I'll start with drainage again, because that's the most important. But having that mindset of a warrior has really helped me.
So Gina, let's talk about your transformation, because it seems to me that there is a sort of consistent theme through this story, and that is that Gina is a gifted athlete. She is someone who loves fitness, and she's dedicated her entire life to the fitness industry and to being a fit person. But it sounds to me at times Gina overdoes it.
Yes.
She overtrained when she was playing for Team USA. She overtrained shortly after that when she resulted in not being able to fight off the multi-germ infection she was suffering after being bitten by a tick. And then again, Gina overtrained during early COVID because she had to do all of the Zoom workouts. And as a result of that, she became weak. So, or her immune system became weak. So that resulted in you now turning those lessons of overtraining into a new entrepreneurial endeavor. So talk to us now in more detail about the Immune Warrior line that you've developed and what the specific content is of that program.
Yeah, so my new brand is called Immune Warrior, and it derives from just going through a ton of adversity the last couple of years, starting with my journey with getting diagnosed with Lyme disease. So, just through autoimmune disease or just our immune system in general, how important that is. In immune, I also say, I don't let my disease defined me, so that makes me immune. So immune has definitely a ton of different definitions of it, how you look at it. But I've come up with this brand where there is, I'm Gina and all the warriors out there who have been athletes who get chronic illness and they don't know where to go with their nutrition, and they don't know where to go with their movement and their fitness level. So, someone like me or an athlete or even non-athlete who just, has Lyme disease, I've come up with different programs. So there's home workout programs, there's gym workout programs, there's going to be like a beginner Lyme disease program. There's just a movement program for all different types of people with workouts, whether you have chronic illness or not. And then nutrition programs as well. There's going to like an anti-inflammatory, what works for me, but there's for everyone, because it's not a one size fits all, right? Where to start, how to build your plate, your healthy plate, not looking at macros and calories and stuff, just learning to listen and intuitive eating to your body and what it needs. So I have that part of that. And then I have, there's newsletter, there'll be blogs about Lyme disease, chronic illness, fitness facts, my story, all that type of stuff. And then I also have a, monthly subscription. So I have ebooks right now that are out for purchase. You can purchase like an 8-week ebook fitness program. And then I'll have a monthly subscription as well. So you get like a couple new workouts every single week, and people just pay a monthly fee and they can subscribe or cancel anytime that works for them. And then I also have a shop, which is apparel, and I branded my own fitness bands, my resistance bands, jump ropes. And the cool part about that is 5% of those sales of anyone purchasing an immune shirt or immune resistance bands, 5% of those go to Global Lyme Alliance, the charity that I work with. And if you guys ever want to do something, I'll absolutely would love to work with you guys in that area. So just, spreading awareness. It's spreading awareness for Lyme disease and chronic illness in general, but everyone's a warrior. So even if you don't have chronic illness, it's about finding, your inner warrior and being 1% better. So that's kind of where immune has come from.
So talk to us about how you believe that it was actually only through your Lyme disease journey that you would have developed the immune brand.
Well, it's funny that's it, actually, that you say that, because when I was coming up with it, it wasn't just because of the Lyme. I was looking back at my past and my life and all the adversity and obstacles I've been through. And I was like, all right, what's one word to describe yourself, like through everything you went through? And the first thing that came to me was warrior. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to name it warrior, but that's the first thing that came to me. It's just, and if you look up the definition of warrior, it's literally that someone it's if you get knocked down, you get back up kind of thing. So, and then I was one day just kind of thinking about, all right, I have this really awesome idea. Like, what am I going to call it? And I was just like, all right, autoimmune disease. And my cousin was in the room and I'm like, all right, immune system, like our immunity, that's like what I live by, like how my immune system is. And my cousin, who's actually coming to work for me at my gym, he goes, immune. And I was like, oh my God, perfect. So he's like, does that mean I get 50% owner? But so he actually said it, and when he said it, it hit me, even though I said I'm like autoimmune, immune system. He's like immune. So as soon as he said it, I'm like, yep, that's it. So it just felt right. It hit right. Because without our immune system, like, who are we, So the warrior goes hand in hand with that.
So where is the future for the Immune Warrior brand and page that you've developed?
Yeah. So, my goal in life, obviously, I'm that crazy person that thinks they can help the whole world. And I know I can't help the whole world, but I want to try to help as many people as possible. So, right now with COVID, I would love to, travel and, meet up with people with Lyme disease, chronic illnesses, put workouts on for them if they're able to. But right now, with what I have, is just, working with what I got right now with this whole COVID thing going on, since I can't travel, and just really through, hear how we're talking through the internet, give them the best information and tools on how to spread awareness and how, because this is for people too who, like, if they have a child who has Lyme disease, so they can understand it more, too. So maybe, you take a mom and a daughter has Lyme disease, and, they find my page, and, they want to work out together. This is a great time for maybe the mother to understand the daughter a little more. So just spreading awareness and, leading others to be 1% better through fitness, health, and wellness.
So Gina, now let me ask you the last question we ask all of our guests. And maybe for you, it will be a little bit of re-engineering because you had your tick bite experience that you did. But let's say, God forbid, your mom, who's been so supportive of you through this whole journey, and has been such a powerful influence in your life. Let's say after this interview, she left the inside of your gym and came into the office where you're sitting now, and she had a tick biting her on her neck the same way you had biting you. What would you recommend that she do so that she wouldn't have to go on a terrible or difficult Lyme disease journey?
I would find the quickest Ziploc bag you can possibly find, or something, whether it's like a cup or something, just lock the tick up in something that you can bring to get tested. So that is number one, because if you do have that tick and they test it directly, you're gonna find out so much stuff way quicker. So your journey is gonna be a little easier there for you, and you can maybe, figure it out in time. So that's number one. And then number two is call a Lyme specialist as soon as possible. I think everyone just in Connecticut, everyone in general, ticks are everywhere, but I feel like everyone should have some education on Lyme disease and what to do. Just a protocol. It's just like, if it's just like a fire drill when you think about it. So if there's a fire, we know the drill, we know what to do. So I feel like there should be something for that as well with Lyme disease. And even when people come in my gym, like, I have signs, I'm like, check yourself, spray yourself, like, it's out there. So I put that out there because I don't want anyone going through what I went through. So that is what two things I would tell anyone out there. So find somewhere to put the tick, to bring it to go get it tested, and call a Lyme specialist as soon as possible.
Thank you for listening to the Tick Bootcamp interview with our guest, Gina Valles. To our listeners, we have a call to action. First, if you'd like to learn more about Gina Valles, please visit our Instagram pages at Gina Valles Fit, GinaVallesFit, or Immune Warrior _. Second, if you enjoyed this episode of the Tick Bootcamp podcast, please share with your friends by using the social media buttons you see at the bottom of our post. Third, Tick Bootcamp has created a Tick Bite blueprint that has been inspired by the information that has been shared with us by past podcast guests. We urge you to visit our website at www.tickbootcamp.com to view the blueprint. Please note, we would appreciate if you would like to offer us any input or any improvements. Fourth, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify to get your automatic episode updates of our Tick Bootcamp podcast. And finally, we thank you, our community, for your comments on our past podcast episodes. Please take a minute to leave us an honest review on iTunes, on Instagram, or on our website. We make it a point to read every single one of the reviews we get. Thank you for listening.